My guest today is Coss Marte, former inmate and now fitness entrepreneur. Welcome, Coss.
No, thank you for having me, Dee. I appreciate it.
Wonderful to have you. So, Coss, you are a fitness entrepreneur with a very fast-growing empire. However, life looked very different for you some years ago. Between the ages of 13 and 23, you went into correctional facilities 10 times, I believe, for drug dealing. If you can, take me to the first time that happened and what that felt like for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a scary situation, but also I was so young that I was so fearless. Like I was not scared of anything. I think when I first got arrested that first time, they put cuffs on me and they take me down to the precinct. I'm like, I didn't really care. I had this like, big shot mentality that nothing's gonna stop me.
Right.
It was scary, but I was a fighter and I didn't really care, and I felt like I was unstoppable myself.
So, when this kept happening, what were your emotions? Was it resignation because you were stuck in a vicious circle, in a cycle that was almost predetermined, or was it something else?
I was always like, this is why I got caught. I need to do something different. I got to figure out, where the cops are patrolling, and I shouldn't have had all this stuff on me at that certain time. I shouldn't be walking around with this. Things should be put away. So I was always contemplating on how to do things a little bit better, and I think that's like the mindset of a little bit of
Oh,
entrepreneurship. Where
well, totally. And as you and I just touched on before we started here, entrepreneurs, a lot of former inmates and current inmates show, and there's data and lots of it to back this, show very, very strong entrepreneurial traits, right? Risk taking for one, which is a major, major characteristic of an entrepreneur. So for you, Coss, you by the age of 23, you were running a serious business, right, in New York City. You were the leader of a multi-million-dollar cocaine operation. You had lots of people working for you. You were making a lot of money, 7 figures, and you got caught. So you went back in and you knew this was a bit more serious. We're going to come back to you as a parent today, but what was the impact, do you think, maybe even with hindsight, on your mother with all of this?
My mom was always devastated, and she was always worried. She was always, stressed out, couldn't sleep at night. She actually said she was sleeping better when I was locked up because she knew where I was at.
Did you ever, and of course you were very, very young, well, you still are, of course, but you were very young at the time, right? Even when you went in for a 7-year stint. But did you ever, during that time, contemplate that there was another way? Did you enjoy what you were doing? I mean, ultimately, because it was the wheeling and dealing and the hustle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to people. I had a lot of fun. I spent a lot of money, did a lot of things. After a while, I felt like I was like a robot, and it was not as fun as it was when I was like in the weeds of it. And I think that's like a comparable situation as you grow your business. You go from a small business to a corporation. You start, you're in the weeds. You're doing everything. It's exciting, but once it starts running like clockwork, it's like, what's next?
Which is obviously very entrepreneurial because we want businesses that, generate income night and day, right? But this time you went in and it was the big one. You went in for 7 years. You were an adult, right? You weren't going into junior correctional facilities. And I guess, hearing about your story, as if things weren't bad enough, you learned that you had cholesterol issues, you had some weight issues, and, potential heart issues further down the track. So take me to that moment.
When I got locked up was the first time I saw a doctor, and first time that I got my blood drawn in years, since I was a kid. So when I went inside and they drew my blood and they called me back to the medical unit, and a physician sits me down, and she says, like, you have like extremely high cholesterol. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? She was like, if you keep eating and, doing what you're doing, like you could die of a heart attack within 5 years. And I was like, what? And they placed me on medication. You know, they told me that I had to diet. They suggested to exercise. And I remember going back to my prison cell and like, you know, just contemplating on what I was gonna do, and I started working out, and I think I did maybe like 5 push-ups, a couple jumping jacks, and I just passed out on my bed, and I said, "This is way too hard. I'm not fucking doing this shit no more." um, and I remember the next day they called the rec yard, and and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go outside, and so I started jogging. You know, after a little bit, people used to see me out there like every single day. Like I was running and then going back to my cell, doing all types of calisthenic workouts. Like,
But can I just stop you there for 1 second, Coss? Because the fact is, you know, as we all know, and you know in your work today with your gyms and all the people that come through the door, it's making the first step, isn't it? It's like literally, if you've never taken any exercise, the most significant moment of change is when you walk through the door of that gym, right? Whether you do 5 minutes or stay for an hour and a half, right? What was your state of mind then and subsequently in the weeks after to keep going and to get up and just do it no matter what?
I I had the mindset of just like moving, you know, and like I was like, I have the time. I'm not really doing anything else. And then it became like my new addiction, you know. I just went out there and I had to do it, whether it was rain, sleet, snow. You know, there's inmates that, you know, I was locked up with that could tell you that, you know, they thought I was crazy because I was like jogging and doing all types of stuff in 3 feet of snow, you know, and I just stopped.
So 6 months down the line, when you started to get seriously fit, which you did, and you trained a number of your fellow inmates and friends in prison, how did that change impact you?
Yeah, so after 6 months, I lost over 70 pounds.
Which is 30 kilos to those that don't know about pounds or more than, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, about 30 kilos. And it was, I guess it was life changing for me in a physical sense. Mental, not as much, because I still had the mentality to like hustle and thinking that I'm going to go back to the streets and do what I do. But at the time, physically, I was able to tie my shoes without like lifting my, you know, I had to like cross my legs to try to tie my shoes at the time. And at that time, I could like bend over and tie my shoes. And I started catching eyes of other inmates, and they saw that I was, you know, consistently out there. And there was one big guy. His name was Bus. He weighed over 300 pounds. Which
Love the
is, you know,
name.
you could divide. Yeah, he was just, we called him Bus because he was the size of a bus. He was huge, which, you know, I could calculate probably 120 kilos, 30 kilos. So huge guy, short like me, you know, not tall. He was like 5'9" like myself, and um and he asked me, you know, he asked me to run with him, and I was like, yeah, let me train you. And so he started running with me, and he brought a couple other friends. He eventually lost over 100 pounds. I helped over 20 inmates who was over 1,000 pounds combined, and I didn't think I was going to start a business behind it. I just had the mentality of like building some sort of camaraderie, and it was just holding each other accountable. It felt good to, you know, have a team that you got out there and you worked out together, you know, and
What was your thinking? I mean, I know you hit another moment of change, unfortunately, which kept you in a bit longer. But what was your thinking about going back out? You mentioned that you thought you're just going to go back to the streets and so forth. Was there a point at which you thought, actually, I've got to do something else with my life?
no, no, you know, my mentality was like, I need to go out there, and yeah, primarily because I was like, you know, what else am I going to do to provide for my family when I'm going to go home? And I've been in similar situations where I was in for a year and come home and maybe try to apply for a few jobs and be frustrated at the fact that they're going to deny me because of my criminal record. So it was like, you know, why bother going that route, you know? And it was not until the end of my incarceration where I had I call it a spiritual awakening for myself, where I ended up in solitary confinement due to. I
Right.
remember my sister finding out I was in solitary, and she writes me a letter, telling me to read Psalm 91 from the Bible, and she's super religious. I'm not a really religious person, but all I had in my cell was this Bible, and that's the only thing they can't take away from your items. And so that's the only thing that they gave me, and it was the Bible that my sister gave me early on in my incarceration. About yeah, like a year into prison, she gave me that Bible, and so I only used that Bible to keep a address book. So like all my homies, all my friends that were like leaving out of prison, I was just writing their phone numbers, names, and contact information, so I could like
I love that
go out
in the
there.
Bible. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, that was the address book,
In the holy
just the
book.
first, yeah, just the first couple pages, because that's the only thing they can't take away from you. So, and I was like,
Very
I
clever.
had, yeah, that was the thing we did, and so out of boredom, I decided, first of all, she gave me this letter, and I threw it in the corner of my cell, and I'm like, hell no, I don't need God. I need a lawyer. I need to get out of this situation. And it was not until like a couple days later, sitting there out of boredom, like that, I decided to turn to the pages she told me to read, Psalm 91, which states, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my shelter and my fortress, my God in whom I trust." And as soon as I read those words, there was a stamp that fell out between those sound pages as I was laying down in my bed, and I felt like chills run down my body. I felt like there was something bigger than myself.
Was that an epiphany moment for you, do you think? Was that, the awakening?
Absolutely.
And then, so what did that lead to? Did you feel you had hope at that moment?
I felt I had hope, but I also for me, I was intrigued on what more the Bible had to say. So I read the Bible from front to back. Um, and as it was weird. It was just weird sensations that I was feeling as I read the Bible because
What type of
uh,
sensations?
um, so I was the cell I was in. It was about 100 degrees. It was the middle of summer. There was no AC, no air ventilation. No fan. I'm just suffocating in there. I'm basically naked, sweating. And I remember every time I started reading it, I felt this cool sensation, like I was in a beach in the Caribbean, with a cool breeze coming through, and it was like a sense of calmness that like really, I don't know, helped like really calm me down, and help me breathe. And so um as that happened, I just kept reading and reading and reading because I wanted to cool down. But also like I really understood what the message was, and was for me it was just like trusting the process, and doing the right thing day after day, and things will be okay, whether I'll be in the bottom of the dirt, I'm gonna crawl out of it if I keep doing the right thing.
And what did the right thing mean to you? Did you think you're going to do something differently or just do something different with your life?
I At that time, no, I just knew that I didn't want to sell drugs anymore. I knew that I just didn't want to continue hurting people the way I was, and not having this mentality of like I had a really cold heart, like nothing bothered me. I could see death, I could see people getting killed in front of me, and sleep at night, and that was just my mindset. As that situation happened, my heart started opening, and the idea sparked, and this is where Body sparked, the idea of fitness, and since I was already helping all these people in the prison yard, working out and all this stuff, I was like, this is the way I can give back to society rather than hurt society. I could help people get fit, get healthy. I felt like it was my calling at the time, and I wrote out a whole mini business plan wrote out pretty much a book of what I wanted to do when I came home and outlined all my exercises, as much as I can, and and tucked it away in an envelope.
But of course, when you're in prison, it's not like you can, even outside solitary, that you can access the internet, that you have access to lots of resources. It's extremely limited, isn't it? Which makes
Absolutely.
even planning for your life post-prison extremely challenging, right?
Later.
So you left prison in 2013, is that correct?
Yeah.
So tell me about how the world was when you came out for you, because it's one thing when you're living in a highly regimented environment, which prison is, at all levels, right? Even if you have a lot of time on your hands, it's not really time you can do whatever you like with, right? You can't go and see your friends or, go and have a cappuccino down the road, right? It's it's very highly constrained and highly regimented. How was life when you came out?
Just appreciation. Like not sleeping on a metal bed with a thin plastic mattress, and I mean, I was sleeping on my mom's couch, but that was like,
Yeah, luxury, right?
I felt like that was like king size, top one king size bed, So I felt like, super comfortable. I felt happy. I felt excited. I got to eat real food, not food of a can or, processed food. And so it was, it was amazing. But as time settles in, you start getting frustrated at the fact that I couldn't find a job. I have to provide for my family. I'm getting the pressures around me to, do the right thing, and it's hard, and it's hard. It's frustrating. I mean, I went to every store in Times Square, every store in Herald Square, and like filled out as over 100 applications, and some of them denied me in my face, and some of them just never hit me back up, and so
because of course the issue, and it's still the issue today, that when you apply for a job, there is a question on the questionnaire, or at some point you're asked the question if you have a criminal record, right? And in most cases, if you say you have, that is it. There are organizations and companies that are making an active point of hiring former inmates. There are a number of organizations here, a number of businesses. There's a business called Timpson's, which hires former inmates and is very active and vociferous about doing this. And of course, we also know that some big corporations are saying that they plan to change their policy and not to ask this question, but very few have done that so far in what I'm seeing around me. And I think you probably were leaning right into that massive, massive problem in terms of trying to get employment.
Absolutely. And it was extremely difficult to transition from, technology. I went in with a MySpace account, and I had no idea what Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Well, you had to teach yourself everything, right? Because you'd sort of missed that bit, right?
I mean, Google was a savior. Figuring out what Google was like, I was just Googling and YouTubing everything. I was like, how to do this, how to do that. And I would just stay up at night, trying to figure things out. And but I felt left back. I felt like I was left out of society, and the world is moving, 110 miles per hour, and I felt like I was
on the periphery, right?
Flintstones meeting the Jetsons, basically.
Oh my God, I get it. Did you, Coss? This is a very odd question, but I have to ask you. After having come out and, been so super grateful for your family who stood by you and their support and your friends and, your mother's lovely couch and decent food and on, did you ever, in the low moments where you were banging your head against the wall trying to get a job and so forth, miss anything about prison?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the camaraderie, the friendships that I built there. I think that's pretty much the only thing that I miss. Those people that you break bread with, you eat with every single day. You create a family in there.
Tell me about the launch of the business.
I mean, the launch of the business was one of the hardest things I've ever done. So I basically started work out in the park. My mom lived across the street from a park, so I would go out across the street. I would see people running, jogging in the neighborhood. The neighborhood changed. It was extremely gentrified. And at this time, like you would never, back in the day, you would never see anybody jogging around the
Right.
neighborhood, or you would see females wearing yoga pants. So I was like, hey, yo, what? I would just run up to them, stop them, tell them I'm doing this, and bring them to the park and tell them I'm doing a boot camp. And I remember after like 2 years, I had like maybe 7 people in front of me, and I thought I made it. I was like, I got a group here, the loyal, we're doing this, so I felt like super accomplished. But it was those small wins that, helped me, keep going.
Yeah, because it's a road, right? You would have leveraged a lot of the skills that you'd built up in your earlier career, if we may call it that. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I transformed my hustle for sure. I used a lot of the same skills that I was using in the streets. So, I started a whole drug delivery service in New York City with business cards, dressing a certain way, talking a certain way, and I was like, I used that like same mentality when I came home now. I made like business cards. I would go up to people in the train station. I would make announcements. I would be fearless about, who I'm going to talk to. And yes, in the beginning, like the first person I stopped, I was nervous about it. But then after I did it multiple times and just kept doing it, was like, whatever, it was just like, I just made it happen. And I got like a million no's, but, I would get maybe a yes, once in a blue, and that's what it was.
And tell me today, what does the business look like?
So today I've already hired 53 people coming out of the prison system. We have a zero recidivism rate. Not all 53 people are still working with me. There's people that's transitioned and are doing their own thing, starting their own businesses, working for other stuff. And meaning zero recidivism rate is that these people have not gone back into the prison system.
Which, I mean, I have to salute you on, because the statistics on this are just horrific. I think it's over 70% of offenders become repeat offenders and go back in within a very, very short space of time, right? I mean, certainly in the UK, when people leave prison, they're given a very, very, very small amount of money. In many cases, this isn't enough for them to get a train fare home. So people naturally revert to what they know. And I think, although, as I mentioned earlier, like the States, I feel is better or more advanced in its programs for former inmates, it's still far from where it needs to be.
Yeah, it depends what state you're in. Like California is definitely way more progressive than New York. Like New York, you get $40 when you're being released. With $40, you go half of that you spend in McDonald's on your bus trip way back home, and then you end up spending that on the transit, and then it's over, and then like if you don't have any family or you don't have anybody taking care of you, then you're in a homeless situation, you're in a halfway house, it's just setting you back up to.
So, Coss, in the time that you've been building the business, alongside that, I know you continue to be very closely connected to the prison system. You're a board member of Second Chance Studios, which is a not-for-profit digital media company. And I love that you're going digital, because that is not even the future today. And, you've clearly learnt your way through Google and all the rest. And, you know what all these things are and how they function, which is brilliant. But this company trains and employs former prisoners as such. And also part of your mission is providing training and employment for young people, some who transit through and go and do their own thing, some who become employees of Conbody. What would your advice be today to someone coming out of prison who's desperate because they don't know which way to go?
I would say trust the process. Just keep doing the right thing. Keep doing the right thing, because good things will come eventually. It could be, you could keep doing the right thing and get bad outcomes every single time, but eventually you're going to have something good happen, and then it'll help you escalate from that situation. That's the mentality that I had, whether it was just like showing up every single day in the park and just going after people or just working out by myself, and just keep doing it consistently, and eventually it would pop.
If there was one thing that society could do today, in your view, for people who, for all sorts of reasons, have been on the wrong side of the tracks and been inside, what would that one thing that society, large corporations, governments could do?
I think one thing is education inside. I think, getting people certified in apprenticeship programs, getting them any university degree. And I feel like, why not educate these individuals so they could come out and do the right thing, and have some sort of redemption, have some sort of, good come out of that. Because, tomorrow that person is going to be released and that person is going to be your neighbor. Do you want that person reverting back to negative ways, or do you want that person contributing, to a positive, being a positive member to society?
You've mentioned on occasion that you still experience discrimination. You as a business builder, as an entrepreneur, what form does that take for you today?
All different types, ways, and first, I think capital was a big issue for
Of
me.
course, raising capital, right, which you have to do to grow.
Yeah, raising capital. I've been featured in multiple, over 200 media outlets today, and proven a great track record, and then being shut down by investors and venture capitalists, and it took me. I didn't raise money until last year.
Right.
It's been extremely difficult for me to get any type of capital. And so I had to bootstrap a lot of the stuff that I've been doing.
Which is also a great learning curve as well. And so where do you want to take the business today?
My goal was to hire as many people coming out of the prison system as possible. So hopefully, we could go back into getting international, go to the UK, open up more.
We're waiting for you.
Franchising, also building the virtual side of the business, because that's limitless amount of people that I could have on a platform. We've trained over 60,000 people today, virtually and in person, and primarily a lot of it has been virtual, and so that's where I want to take the business.
In what way are these workouts different? Is it the fact you can do it anywhere, you don't need space, there are no weights? What is your differentiator in the market?
Yeah, no equipment, all body weight, small constrained space. You're also helping somebody coming out of the prison system rebuild their life, and so you give somebody a second opportunity, and the whole workout is different. It's not your F45, Orange Jerry, all these franchises that you see around, and it's not Barry's. It's not little 45-second intervals. It's 45 minutes of just straight nonstop movement, and it's a whole different concept, a whole different fitness theory that I came up with while I was incarcerated.
And you also, talk about creating a movement. Tell me what that means to you.
The movement is just transforming people's mentalities, changing people's perceptions, getting people to really have an open heart on who they see and not judge at their first sight, and I feel like a lot of people hear or see people that are coming out of the prison system as like low lives, degenerates, as, people that are predators. And I want to change that whole mentality because, like I said before, these people are the most trustworthy, most lovely people that I've met in my life, and smartest. And so I want to change that perception. And I think we do that in the Combat studio when you have young professionals come in and see a trainer there, and they first are scared at what they're about to do or who are they going to meet, and hear about this person's background. But when they start hanging out with this person, it's like they won't separate. Some people I have to like kick out of the studio because, we're closing up, and but it's a lovely thing to see happen.
Coss, you've gone through major changes in your life, right? And now you're in a way, you're a change maker, right? It's like a new path for you with your business and your entrepreneurial life. You've had a number of epiphanies, and also you've become a father twice, and very recently. Again, huge congratulations to the family. I'm super excited about that little baby girl. How has being a father changed you? And what do you tell your son, who's obviously a teenager now, about your former life?
I mean, I'm super transparent with my son. I tell him everything, and I think that really breaks down different parenting too. Because for years, like like my parents would never open up to me about their past or what they go through and their trauma. Like I'm just open about it, and I feel like it becomes a better dialogue instead of, and you gain more respect and you gain more attraction that way. And so that's just my concept of parenting.
How has it changed you as a person, being a parent?
Yeah, I mean, being a parent, you never understand what your parents go through until you're a parent,
Say
until
that again.
yeah. You feel it, you feel it within you in your soul, you feel it in your heart. You feel it's something that it's unexplainable until you become a parent. You could talk about it, you could describe it, and maybe some people might feel tiny little bit of it, but it's unexplainable, the feeling and the attraction and the connection that you have with your kid, when you have a kid.
Yeah, and it never stops, by the way, even when they're grown-ups, it's lifelong. So just strap your seatbelt on, okay? In all the best ways, of course. Looking back on your life to date and also your time in prison, what's been the biggest lesson that you took from that with all the highs and lows?
No, I never really looked at the lows as being lows for me. I think just all learning experiences, and I think somebody told me this, that Asian culture celebrates mistakes, and so I think celebrating those experiences, those downfalls are great. They're experiences that we have to crawl out and then look. At that time we might be devastated, might be pulling our hair, in that situation. But looking back, you're like, wow, I went through that, and I came out of that a stronger person.
Coss, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been
No, I appreciate it.
a privilege and a pleasure to have you on the show, and I look forward to meeting you soon, either here or when you come to London.
Yes, I'll definitely be in London. My sister lives over there, so she's been up there. I have an Irish brother too.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I look forward to that. Thank you again, Coss.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Double Espresso with me, Dee Sterling. If you enjoyed it, I'd love you to review and subscribe to the podcast so we can share these amazing stories with others. I'd also love to connect with you, so feel free to contact me via Instagram DM at @DoubleEspresso. Until the next time, au revoir.